Today I'm going to show you how to build a very versatile and simple raised garden bed. The design you see right there requires a trellis. It requires 3 8-foot galvanized roofing pieces. You need 4 1/2-inch galvanized piping, bag of screws, and 2 8-foot cedar posts. So we decided to do this design because we wanted the trellis. When I say how versatile this is, it's because instead of using 2 8-foot like we did right here, these are 6 feet. We cut the 2 foot off and then use those as the corner posts. You can obviously just use 1 8-foot and do each corner. We also over reinforce the roofing with the galvanized piping. I've seen many designs where they just do 3 in between and just 1 in the middle, and it seemed to work out perfectly fine for them. That's what's nice about this design, is you can modify it however you want. So I'm going to show you how we built these ones. Like I just built that one, we're going to build a 4th one for right there, so we can have a total of 4. So I'm going to show you how to build that, give you some tips and tricks along the way. One thing I recommend doing is when you go to the hardware store, make sure that all 3 sheets you get are the same size. I actually saw sizes ranging from 24 to 26 inches. The last thing you want to get home and figure out after you started your project is that one of your sheets happen to be a couple inches longer than the rest. Another thing is the trellis design. Like I said earlier, 2 8-foot posts makes it pretty simple to cut off the 2 feet and just leave the rest for the trellis. You don't really have to mark out or plan ahead for that size, but if you plan on doing all 4 corners the same size, I recommend you getting one of the 10-foot posts, because that leaves you a little wiggle room when building your design, especially if you happen to get 3 sheets that are all 26 inches, for instance. So the first thing I'm going to do is cut the posts. This is as easy as laying the sheet metal down square with the posts and then just marking and cutting. You can use a circular saw, compound saw, or even a hand saw. This design is very forgiving, so if you don't make your cut perfectly straight, it's not going to make that big of a deal. This is all I have, so this is what I'm going to use. Okay, we're going to do the same thing for the other posts, and then we'll get the sheet metal attached to these. Now let's attach the sheet metal to the posts. This is pretty straightforward, just by lining it up square and screwing it down. I like to get it pretty close to the edge because later on I'll use a piece of flashing to cover all this up. Also, you can use just about any nail, screw, or what I like to use are these sheet metal screws, because they have a really nice washer to give it a little bit more surface area to bite on. Alright, I like that there. I also put the edge I cut on the bottom right here, just because I know my cut is not as perfect as when I got it, so I like to keep the nice cut on the very top just for personal preference. let's get this done for the other side and then the other 3 sides. Again, my cut's on the very bottom. And that looks good. What's nice about this design is you can just eyeball that part. Doesn't have to be perfect. As you noticed, I did one on every single one of these grooves. That's later on to help with soil retention. So we did both sides. Now we just need to cut the 3rd sheet metal in half for the front and back, and then we'll get those fastened on and get this whole thing together. Just like the post cuts, this cut doesn't have to be perfectly straight. All you need is a somewhat straight object and a mostly accurate tape measure, and it'll get the job done. When we start cutting, you could use tin snips, a Sawzall, or what I'm going to use is a grinder. And when we start cutting, since we're going to be dealing with metal, we're going to go ahead and wear safety glasses for this. So let's go ahead and mark the halfway point and then get our straight line. maybe do a better job cutting than I did, but like I said, you'll see, it really won't make too big of a difference. If you've got some friends to hold this up while you screw this on, then have them help you. But if not, you can see we can still find a way. So the trick is just getting the first one level with the top, and then on the other side, and then you can kick out or push in to get your perfect line of screws. Doesn't have to be perfect. I'm really happy with that. So then as you see, we tilt, we do the bottom. This is the edge I didn't butcher, so I did it right up to the edge. On the other side, I'm just gonna level up the top, and we're gonna get a pretty good straight edge on that. This is where a magnetic bit really comes in handy. Now we'll do the screws in the rest of the empty areas. Flip it around, complete it, and then we can move it. Again, I'm going to be starting with the clean cut edge on this side, and then we'll deal with the butchered end on the other side. So I'm lining up the edge on the very bottom on this side, and just eyeballing that this is pretty close. Again, this is where having friends is really helpful. I'm just going to improvise though. This area was slightly hilly, so I dug a rectangle out so my planter box would sit flat. Now what I'm gonna do is lay some weed mat down and then go ahead and get the 1/2-inch conduit cut so we can secure these sides. This is the 10-foot pole. So since the side of the raised garden bed is approximately 24 inches, what we're going to do is we're going to cut this 10-foot pipe into thirds. I think that's 3 feet, 4 inches, which should be 40 inches. If my math is right. So I'm just going to cut this in thirds, just get close. So 40 inches is about right there. I'm going to cut it at an angle. And my disc is just shy of going all the way through, but that's perfect. So cutting it at that angle obviously gives you that steak-like feature to it. So again, about 40, so about right there. All right. So this side now has a good striking surface flat, and the spiky end, same thing with this guy. This side has 2 spiky ends, so I'm just gonna cut off the one I don't like, which is gonna be this one, because we want a nice flat edge to strike the hammer against when we stake it in. If my cut wheel was only a little bit longer, it would get all the way through, but that's good. So, gonna do the rest of the conduit, and then we'll get it all staked in. Take the caps off of these before you stake them in. It's a pain in the butt to get these things off after you smacked them in with the hammer. I'm just going to eyeball the distance I want in between these. Again, that's the nice thing about this project. You can basically just eyeball everything and it still turns out pretty good. This edge is really sharp, but I got the heavy-duty weed mat, so I like to just make a small incision with my scissors before I go ahead and stake this in. Also, notice the orientation. I want to stake it in like this inside, not like this. For some reason, when you stake it in like this, it pulls away. But when you stake it in angled in like this, it somehow snugs up against the wall. So that's how you want to stake it in. Some of those puppies needed the sledgehammer because it started getting really hard, which is probably a good thing. It means it's gonna hold a lot of weight in. So one thing I want to point out that you can probably see on the camera is there's a slight bow in. That's nothing at all to be concerned about. I actually kind of want that because you're gonna have 2.5 yard feet pushing on all the sides, so that ends up straightening it up. Also, I have a really strong fence in the back, so as you saw, I didn't stake 2 in the back. It's pushed all the way up against the fence, and the fence is very sturdy. I think that would have just been a waste, so not even going to worry about that. So your garden bed's done. You could fill it up with dirt and start using it. But I recommend doing this last final step in order to give you the best out of your garden bed and save you a little headache down the road. So, as you can see, I have this exposed edge right here. What I like to do is take this piece of flashing that I cut, put it right in front of here. Not only does it cover up this gross eyesore that you saw me butcher earlier, but it also protects you from scraping the sides along here with your jeans. Not only that, it prevents soil and water from seeping out of here. I didn't have a problem with this on my first garden bed. I just put the flashing on, I was good to go. I realized the first garden bed we had more of a clay kind of soil, and so that just clogged these up. That was good to go. But my second raised garden bed, I was not as fortunate. Actually, we had more of a sandy, loose soil type, and it would start coming out of here. Also, when watering, it would trickle out of there. I don't want that. So on my second one, what I did is I took my hammer, smashed in all of these, and it stopped about 80 to 90. It was good enough for me on that one. But on my third garden bed, I realized if you use some foam insulation on the back, which I'll show you in a second, that'll completely stop everything from coming through onto your floor, onto your grass, whatever you have. I'm going to have decorative rock right here, so I don't want dirt and water mixing in with that. So I'm going to go ahead and get both of these on each side, and then I'll show you the foam technique I really like, and we'll go from there. Here's that foam I use. So make sure you activate the pipe so it's green. And then these gaps, I don't know if you can see it, I just shove it in here. Spray a little bit of foam. And it expands, so you don't need to go crazy. Nothing comes out the front, so you won't even tell. You probably don't actually need to do the upper one, because usually you don't have dirt that high. Personal preference. When you fill this up with dirt, you don't even notice that. Can't even tell. Another tip I want to mention is my weed mat right here. I pulled the weed mat underneath the raised garden bed, flipped it up, and I taped it up. Theoretically, this will hold it up, so dirt that I add will go underneath the weed mat and not just lay on top. If, for instance, you had it flat, some dirt likes to get underneath this, and then it would just lay on your weed mat. Another thing is, this raised garden bed holds 2.5 cubic yards of soil. What we did is we put 1 cubic yard of topsoil, and then we put 1.5 cubic yards of raised garden bed mix. I've seen a lot of people put logs on the bottom for kind of like a slow release kind of fertilizer. A lot of people put grass clippings on top. You can throw whatever you want in here to fill this up. What I recommend, though, is after you fill it up, make sure you give it a real good soaking. This will make sure that the ground levels itself out and equalizes a little bit. Because one of ours, we actually had to add soil afterwards, and it's a lot easier to do when the plants are not there yet. So now the final things I'm going to do is foam the back over there, add the trellis to both of these, and then I'm going to put some decorative rock around, also maybe a nice little border. So I'm going to do all that, come back, also add this strip line. I'll come back when all that's finished and give you a final walkthrough. This is the finished design. It's been about 6 months since that clip you saw a couple seconds ago. We are mid-November now, so everything's starting to die off. I finished the foaming on the back of those 2 posts, added the 4 trellises, added my decorative rock, and also this border that you can see right there. It's basically like an L channel. And my lawnmower, actually, the lawnmower tire actually rides inside of it, and it makes it so you really have almost a maintenance-free mowing experience. You really don't have to weed eat. I've done it a couple times for some stragglers that grow, but overall, I love this maintenance-free design. I think the height definitely helps with weed control, because we've had about 3 or 4 weeds a month we have to pull out of these. Also, I did add a water drip line. As you can see, this is the main line and these are the individual ones that run off of it. We did have bell peppers and onions and tomatoes in these, but we've pulled them out and thrown them in there because they've died, since again we're mid-November. That one we just used for the debris. Basically, I throw sticks in there from our apple tree and apples that fall on the ground. We throw them in there. That's kind of like our compost one right now. Next year we will fill it with dirt and use it like the rest of these. These are my strawberries. They're not growing anything anymore, but they're still trying to hang on and stay green. Also got some asparagus right there. I did not know asparagus grows kind of like a tree if left untreated. Also started some grapes. They take, I think, 2 years to actually grow and produce fruit, but as you can see, this one at least, I don't know why it's a little straggler, but this one is booming and this one's not too bad. Love this design. Again, it's really maintenance free. I don't really have to do much other than come outside and collect the fruits and vegetables once in a while, and I am so glad I did this. I think it's a great addition to my house. If you have any questions at all about this, please feel free to leave your comments in the video description and I will answer them as soon as I see them. Other than that, I appreciate you for watching and I hope you have a good day.